Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show. Today is May 2nd, and we're doing government and security stories to share with your friends.
Let's start with perhaps we'll start with government, and perhaps the worst kind of government story, in my opinion, is the zombie bill. The things we hate.
They resurrect.
We rail against it. It's a big news cycle, and everybody's like, oh, God, well, we've defeated it. But it's never really defeated, is it?
Engadget's headline is, the Earn It Act will be introduced to Congress for the third time. This is the one that tries to protect kids online by making it so that everything is searched all the time.
And they say that the major target of this bill is people who are going after children. But I would say that encryption...
Yeah.
The close number 2, if not tied for first.
Probably number 1 the whole time.
Yeah. So the argument is, now that all of the big services are doing encryption, end-to-end encryption, they're saying, no, we can't do that because there might be bad things in there. Same old argument.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
But maybe this time we'll get it through.
Also, how do we enforce it? Never really been described.
Oh, but it sounds so good when you see it on the election thing.
Yeah, it's going to be the thin end of a wedge to do bad things.
And one of the things that government does to push through this awful legislation is to prey on our fears. In this case, I'm a little afraid. Aren't you guys? I don't know if I trust them to deal with this, but this does seem like it is going to be a problem in society.
U.S. policing AI at companies to make sure it doesn't violate civil rights. So this was a thing that came out that literally just said, hey, if you violate somebody's civil rights as a company, you're not going to be able to blame the AI, which is weird because usually they do get away with that when it's not AI. Remember the whole Equifax breach? And it was like, oh, somebody broke in, even though we had paper thin security.
This just tells me OpenAI has not bribed enough people yet.
We're paywalled on Reuters. I can't remember if this was FTC or FCC, but part of the Rosenworcel duo, one of them is going after this. I'm sure the other one supports it. And AI, obviously, it's scary, but the government sees it and they say, oh, what scarier things could we do to that? How could we trample on our citizens more with that?
DHS task force will examine how to use AI to protect homeland security. Now, it's not in this article. Did you have the article that has the screenshots from the battlefield thing where it was like, would you like to deploy drones? And it's like, I can deploy drones in this configuration or this configuration. It was like ChatGPT for battlefield management.
I think there was a different article.
You're talking about Palantir.
Yeah.
No, this...
Do we have?
They all kind of tie together.
Luckily, Palantir is not part of the Homeland Security. I mean, I'm sure they contract them.
Well, I guarantee you, if DHS is looking at AI to protect Homeland Security, they're looking at the demo Palantir did because oh boy, it was kind of like that's interesting. Pretty sure I saw a Black Mirror episode about this.
So obviously the reporters were like, well, what exactly are you going to do with this? They only gave 2 examples. One was fentanyl precursors. They believe that AI could look at all the different shipments and somehow identify trends to note what might be fentanyl precursor. And also somehow they wanted to identify products that were created by slave labor. I'm not sure how AI would determine that, but they think it can.
Wouldn't it be funny if it flagged stuff that was like, it was just really poor conditions, like Walmart or Amazon?
Apple?
Yeah.
I mean, Apple has been busted a few times. It's down the supply chain. There's some deniability, but there were slaves. And here's a little bit of good news, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't find a barb in this one. Did you see anything? Seems like this is, once again, California at the forefront, and hopefully everybody will adopt this.
Delete Act seeks to give Californians more power to block data tracking. I think this is one the ad agencies are secretly hoping for, too, so they'll have something to do.
Oh, I thought you would be like, if you were an ad agency, you'd be upset, but at the same time, it's like, well, it is work.
So this gives you the option to see what is being used to determine your ad profile. And if you want, purge it. You probably have to do it for every individual service, though. What a task that will be.
Yeah.
If this passes and that becomes a thing, I would encourage some of you open source software people who want a fun project, make a unified destination where you can clear everything all at once.
I have a feeling it's going to be fill out a form and then somebody will get back to you and they'll just try to.
We can't automate that part of the process. We'll use AI for everything else, but not that.
I imagine the do not pay people will probably be quick to jump on that. They do a lot of that kind of stuff. We have a bundle of Supreme Court stories. The first one, of course, has to do with AI.
The U.S. Supreme Court rejects computer scientists' lawsuit over AI-generated inventions. That will let stand the lower court's ruling that AI-generated inventions are not eligible for a lot of protections.
He invented something with AI, wanted the AI to be the owner. Ultimately, they've said no. And he also is suing separately for music created by AI. He wants to copyright it.
I mean, okay, blah, 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 ha, ha, ha. But, we have this idea of corporate personhood in America, and it is sort of interesting that a corporation can be a person, but not an AI. Like, it's when you dig into it, it's like, there's not a lot of distinction between those two in the modern world.
Did you see Grimes tweeted about this kind of thing too?
Oh, we've got a story in nonsense.
Did we include a story? Oh, is it nonsense? Okay. I didn't know if we'd put it. I didn't see it in the AI section. All right, never mind. That's a teaser.
It's amazing, though. She's doing it brilliantly.
No, she's not. She's a moron. I love her music, but...
Well, I mean, come on. We already knew she was a moron. But I imagine soon that I think Japan will probably do it first because they love this kind of thing. Every major corporation will have an AI avatar.
Yeah.
That you can interact with.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another, man. We're just leading right into all our AI stories for the next episode.
Jeeves, time to shine.
I guess will that be Friday episode? I guess we'll see how the stories shake out.
But I bet Level 1 could afford the rights to Ask Jeeves. Oh, we should do that.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like now that we've mentioned that we're interested, they're going to jack up the price.
Okay, Krista, have you got enough time to design a whole thing for around the ... search engine? It's like your search engine is
it sends your search results to a dot matrix printer.
No, it's an AI living in a dot matrix printer searching for your stuff. But it's been around. It's seen some shit.
You know those games like Inscription and Undertale and stuff like that, where it's like meta and you slowly learn that there's something bad going on. It'd be great if Jeeves was put through that.
Yeah.
You'd start interacting with him and there's little graphical glitches. He starts saying really dark stuff. That's kind of where AI goes naturally.
Yeah.
And we had the big argument about whether or not you can block public figures, or if public figures can block you on social media, because they are public figures and they should have to listen to you because they work for you in a long time ago world that we've left,
Do they
buried in the dirt.
Do they?
Trump was the big one. It turned out the Trump case was thrown out because he was no longer president. It didn't matter anymore. Recently, we had the AOC one, and I think they let her ban, right? Or did they not?
Was he her constituent? I think that was the big.
Like, right. He wasn't
linchpin.
a resident of New York, so they were sort of waffling on that. But now it's going to be the final decision.
The U.S. Supreme Court to decide if public officials can block critics on social media.
I feel like it's so weird because you could see a world where you're a politician, you get a social media account trying to connect with people that you're supposed to be representing. But then what if someone just writes a bot that just constantly tweets you horrible things about yourself all the time?
You can mute them, but you couldn't block them.
Yeah.
Like you can mute them so that you don't have to see their thing, but if you block them, they can't see what you're saying, which is the problem.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe that's a fine workaround.
It's definitely a case that will happen, but I think more often it would be that I just don't want to hear any dissent.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, our government does not like hearing dissent. We've got a lot of evidence of that. And I think here's a case where it's not the intention here, obviously, but do they use the exact same graphic? Oh, no, they made different ones.
Yeah, so daffodils, that's a beautiful spring shot.
But this one, I fear, could be used to quash a little dissent.
YouTube, its cases, Supreme Court could shape protections for ChatGPT and AI. This is the one that we've covered before where somebody saw radicalizing content on YouTube that was promoted by the algorithm. It's like, is Google responsible for that? They say Section 230 ultimately it was user uploaded content, it wasn't us, but their algorithm promoted it. So it's kind of like, And so this is saying, hey, depending on how this case goes, because ChatGPT is AI, that could have implications for other stuff. And the Supreme Court justices are probably so out of the loop on everything AI that they couldn't get copyright stuff correct. With the whole Oracle versus Google thing, that was bad. That was really bad. The legal takes on that, very bad.
They might be a little out of touch. they might not be the best group of people to be talking about technology, which is terrifying because we've just shown you 4 examples where they were like major decisions. And we've also had some controversies from the court. Now, the first round of these controversies about like being taken to dinner or being taken on vacation or whatever, it's like, well, I'm sure that happens in government every day.
Yeah.
The newest reveal, though, was that these people had been buying his homes.
Right. And they didn't disclose it anywhere.
It was basically Clarence Thomas house flipper. And he always made a tidy profit. That one's a little more worrying, but the Supreme Court says, don't worry.
Supreme Court on ethics issues. Well, not broken. We've investigated ourselves, and we're finding that nothing is wrong. Yeah.
I can't believe they say stuff like this and don't think that anything will happen.
Yeah. Well, one of them had one of these shady real estate transactions, and they actually did disclose it. But Thomas had some, and he didn't disclose it. But his mom still lives there, and he has power of attorney over his mom. But technically, it was a real estate transaction for his mom, which wouldn't be required to be disclosed, but because he has power of attorney and he's the one that arranged it, yeah, he probably should have disclosed that.
Yeah.
Well, the correct answer here is, all right, this is a gray area. We didn't violate any rules technically, but we understand the concern. So from now on, we'll make some rules that make sure we don't repeat this.
That's not what they said.
No,
Not even a little. No, they were like, everything's fine. Stop paying attention to us, peons.
And yeah, in fact, they seemed, a little annoyed that we were impetulant with even the insinuation.
Why are you angry that I have multiple homes? Just buy more, peasants.
Why are you angry that a public servant has millions and millions of dollars in real estate?
Just have more money.
And the Commerce Department, we seem to be giving them a lot more power these days, don't we?
This is the thing that I said they should do a couple of weeks ago.
Well, they did. Congratulations.
Commerce Department outlines plans to fund cutting-edge chip research. And this is not big company research. This is little company research, startup companies, and other things like that. We might be able to finally get JLCPCB as a thing available here in the U.S. to entrepreneurs. Although this isn't really talking about that exactly, but it's saying, we want to avoid the situation where we give college professors money and they don't do anything with it. But we also want to avoid the situation where we give companies like Intel all the money and they ultimately use it for stock buybacks and other stuff. Is there a middle ground here? And this is a lot of words to say and describe that.
This was a fraction of the CHIPS Act, though, right?
Yes,
it like 10 billion or something like that.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money.
But you could probably make that go. I mean, $10 billion would go a long way in academic research.
It's not a lot of money in comparison to the rest of the money, but it is still a lot of money.
Well, they are talking specifically about how one of their examples seemed to be the whole, like, AMD bought a company in California that was like 3 or 4 dudes that designed a chip, and they were planning to have it fabricated somewhere else. And they came up with something really amazing for their design, and then AMD just gobbled them up. And it's like, that's a kind of good innovation we want to encourage. How do we do that again? Let's provide money to do that to smart people. Might work.
Well, remember the 5G saga? It was so exhausting. And there's bad news. But it's even worse than this, actually, because not only is 6 coming, 5.5 is coming.
6G is coming sooner than you think, FCC Chief Rosenworcel says. I would add the subheading that, and AT&T is definitely going to add to the confusion by labeling all their old crappy 4G stuff 5G.
Or 5.5.
This feels like a threat, the headline, the way they wrote it. It's coming for you.
So what she wants is, because remember the spectrum was the big debate.
Yeah.
So she wants to earmark the spectrum now before we ever even need to argue about it and decide a lot of the things that we didn't decide about 5G before the fact.
Well,
Not a bad idea.
Just to recap, there are 3 spectrum bands in 5G: short range, long range, and medium range. And the medium range is still kind of a dumpster fire. We've mostly got short range figured out in cities. Long range is a medium temperature dumpster fire. It's not great, but it's not broken. The long range, but the medium range is actually like legit. I don't know if we'll ever see it work properly. 5.5 would be if we figure out all 3 of those and have some reasonable standard that's generally available in our phones. And that might not happen before we have 6G.
And the Coinbase saga continues. Coinbase claims that they're being unjustly attacked by the government because they are not ever given rules on what they should be doing. What's a security? What's not? What do we need to pay? What do we need to track? They say that the government just won't tell them. The government says that's nonsense, but Coinbase is very serious about it.
Coinbase sues the SEC for answer on rule to specific digital assets. This is actually, so the text here is very, very good. Coinbase is doing a lot of posturing, I guess is probably the right way to describe it, so that they'll have an affirmative defense in the future, because I think they have done things in the past that the SEC is now saying other companies had done maliciously. And so Coinbase is asking, hey, if we do this, isn't this considered this way? And the SEC is basically saying, we're not interested in you right now. And it's like, but if we ever cross you, you're going to take this out of context and say that we were doing this for nefarious purposes when this was just, innocent, normal Wall Street skullduggery. And so this is going to be a really interesting defense exhibit for a decade to come.
Last week we learned that they had signaled that they'd be willing to leave the United States. And I think they started working on incorporation somewhere else. So I guess this is sort of like, well, I'm going to give you one last chance.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, though, because the SEC has not... They have been kind of ambiguous. I mean...
But that's the power, right?
Yeah. It's like, don't make us come in there. It's like, what are you going to do? It's the threat that's more serious than the reality.
It's the implication.
Yeah. It's like, we'll fine you $2 million. And it's like, well, we're just going to keep doing that illegal thing. That's not worth our time to change what we're doing.
Now, let me just pose this to you. I realize this could lead to some problems, obviously. But if a government works for the people and they have a copyright, shouldn't all the people be able to enjoy that copyright?
You would think.
Why would the government have a monopoly on it when technically we paid for it?
Saskatchewan government issues a warning to those who use government logo in satirical social media posts. I love this. Growth for everybody except.
And it's not even like the Saskatchewan government logo. It's this stupid like Build Back
social
Better.
media.
Yeah, this program they came up with. And it's obvious parody. Obvious parody. I don't know if Canada has parody laws. I imagine they do.
Oh, yeah.
They
probably.
should. It's like, we will have none of this bad attitude, young man. It's how this reads.
How dare you call out our stupidity? And here's a crazy story. This might sound like a win from the headline, but it's not, because it's been going on for such a long time, and this guy's not really going to be able to enjoy this.
Man battling Google wins $500,000 for search result links calling him a pedophile. And when you dig into this, it's, oh, good Lord, your legal bill really is $500,000 because he's had to have a team of lawyers fighting Google's team of lawyers because they won't fix it.
Also, he's proven damages.
Yeah.
He's proven a lot of damages because someone accused him of that on a website with no grounds, and he was in real estate, so people would Google him, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, am I going to invest in this? Better Google it. And they'd be like, whoa.
I don't want to.
Don't want to be a part of that. He is now in his 70s, and he's just getting this. And he wanted $6 million, but they said that he couldn't prove a lot of the stuff. He could only prove the damages of $500,000.
Yeah, his livelihood suffered greatly, but...
And he's no longer in his earning years.
Yeah.
So he can't go back and make anything up. And this was a bit of a shocker, huh?
Yeah.
I thought for sure enough pockets would get lined, but apparently they did not.
Microsoft Activision deal prevented to protect innovation and choice in cloud gaming. The Country Music Awards has prevented Microsoft from... What?
Wow, that's incredibly progressive.
No,
That's overstep.
This is in the UK.
Competition and Markets Authority.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Microsoft spokesperson sort of angrily said, "Or our confidence in the UK, they've been shaken." Oh yeah, Microsoft hits back at UK after Activision acquisition blocked.
That feels like a toddler on a playground being like, I didn't want to play with your stupid toy anyway.
It sounded like Microsoft was going to try to go ahead, but then in subsequent press releases after that, Microsoft's like, maybe we should put this on hold.
But also, I think he was sort of hinting that maybe we don't do business in the UK anymore.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
a little bit of a punishment. He I can't speak today. Specifically said, I'm not confident about the things that we have in the UK. Maybe we just nudge those over to the EU.
Yeah.
Do you think the EU will allow that acquisition?
Yeah, they're working on Germany.
They probably will, yeah. They'd love to have those data centers and all that taxing.
UK is afraid of making any decisions at this point after Brexit. And who would blame them?
But that's not the only thing that the UK has done to threaten and anger the big tech companies this week.
Major tech firms face hefty fines under new digital consumer bill. Could be up to 10% of their revenue. But there's a lot of stuff in here that these companies, the way that they operate today, are not going to be able to operate this way under that kind of a climate. They just wouldn't be able to, because they're going to be in violation of this.
Because it's competition, and we all know that they behave anti-competitively.
Yeah.
It's been proven so many times.
We have a story about that like every week.
It's like they don't have to have the best product. See also Android. Not that iOS is any better, but things have consolidated to the point where it's like if there was someone like Linus Torvalds today that was like, hey, you can load your hobby operating system on your phone and it's going to be great. They're going to have a really tough battle beyond just the technology part of it. See also PinePhone.
Everybody wants control, and the EU wants control of big tech companies. I give them a little bit of props here that they are specifically naming names. There's probably some, subsection that says they can add and remove from this list at their whim. But for now, they're telling us exactly who they're going after.
EU names 19 large tech platforms that must follow Europe's new internet rules.
It's mostly Google.
Yeah, as you can see from the image in this article.
Oh, I thought they gave us a bulleted list. But yeah, they point out that
there's not a bulleted list, but there's a quote down there.
I think 9 of them are Google products. YouTube, Google Search, Google Play, Maps, Shopping, Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, Apple, Bing, TikTok, Twitter.
And Wikipedia.
You think DuckDuckGo is kind of upset?
Seething right now. Coping
We need
and
to
seething.
be controlled too.
Well, like the context of the Wikipedia inclusion is if somebody has a factually inaccurate article about you on Wikipedia, you can get that fixed, which, compared to what that guy went through with Google, they got that $500,000 settlement. Don't think it would be a huge deal to get that fixed on Wikipedia.
People will just fix things on Wikipedia because they want to, for free.
Yeah. Or, they'll troll you endlessly.
To manipulate the narrative. We see a lot of that. And we also see a lot of lawsuits that are sort of just never-ending battles, right? We go on, we got the Qualcomm, we got Google and Sonos, we got IBM, Oracle. It's all just, it never ends. And the EU is trying to find a way to arbitrate all of that. I don't know if it's the best to let the government decide, but that's what they want to do.
The Reuters headline is the EU sets out patent rules for smart technology to limit lawsuits. So this is kind of an EU equivalent of the FRAND stuff. So if Qualcomm comes up with a new cellular radio and everybody's going to use it because everybody says it's really good, are there rules that let Qualcomm have the monopoly, but have the monopoly in kind of a controlled way so they don't become richer than beyond the dreams of avarice? Because we see how Apple and other companies act when they are in that position.
Now, the scary part about this, though, is that in an emergency, and let's remember that the national emergency for 9/11 is still a national emergency. They don't go away once we did get the pandemic one finally lifted, but I think that was a political move. But in an emergency situation, the government could dictate that, like, nah, you know what? We really need this product, so we're going to just suspend payments on this patent. You have to make this.
It's weird how we didn't do that with medical patents.
I think they have more power.
Oh, I've made myself
strange.
sad.
Or like insulin. It's like we can make insulin for like 20 cents. Why aren't we doing that? A lot of people probably wouldn't die.
And Bulgaria has a terrible, terrible law coming up here. But when you read the story, you find out that it's not really Bulgaria making this law.
Yeah.
There's a red, white, and blue barrel of a gun right up to their temple while they're announcing this law.
Bulgaria approves draft law that turns pirate site operators into criminals.
Knock, knock. It's the United States.
Yeah.
Democracy coming.
My favorite quote from one of these disillusioned people is it was something along the lines of, copyright violation is just as important as like poisoning a municipal water supply. And it's like,
Is it? I don't need copyright protections to live.
Seems unlikely.
remember in the 70s when they said that copyright violations were a tort and it was not really criminal activity? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
The other terrifying thing here is that Bulgaria never said no to any of these measures. They agreed to them. The problem was, according to the copyright regime, mostly here in America, they didn't enforce it enough. Their numbers weren't good enough. They're like, you're not trying hard enough to crack down on copyright infringement. And we can tell because you're not reporting enough numbers. Those are rookie numbers. You got to get them up.
It's like literally everybody is a felon from just copyright violations.
Yeah, that's sort of unspoken, right? Like, we know you're not enforcing enough because the way that we have set up these laws, everybody's in violation. So how are you not getting more people in here, huh? It's easy.
It's so easy. Why aren't you just doing it?
And I imagine the copyright situation will get so much worse once we have digital currencies. Because anything that you do toward buying a product that they don't like that might bypass the copyright, well, that's going to be immediately reported. And always at the forefront of that, the vanguard in the digital currency fight is China.
China makes major push in its ambitious digital yuan project.
It's interesting that they introduced the digital yuan like how long? A couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
And they've done all sorts of programs to try to force people to get it. They've given away free digital currency. They've just showered the people with it.
The new designer baby IVF thing that we're going to talk about later, probably.
But people don't want it. The people of China know what their government is like. And they're like, well, we got the WePay. We really like that. So we don't really care about your thing.
Is Jack Ma okay? Where's he at? Is he?
He's probably fine.
Please make sure he's okay.
And if you are an American, this should terrify you, because the thing that's probably saving us right now from, becoming a horrible third world country is our reserve currency status. And we have really, really done nasty things to all the rest of the world economically as a bully with that. But what if that were to go away?
Yuan overtakes the dollar to become the most used currency in China's cross-border transactions. It's probably not just the oil transactions, but yeah.
Now, globally, it's like 8% versus 80-something%. America's still number one in a big way. But every percent we lose hurts us.
Oh boy. And, if the Congressgooders don't understand code and the Supreme Court don't understand that, they definitely understand that with the reserve currency.
That makes a lot of sense.
Like, usually this program it's like, all these people don't understand this, and they're piloting the ship, and it's just like, I've never heard of an ion storm. What's that? Full speed ahead. Like,
although, I don't know. You think, they're intelligent people, right? For the most part. Do you think they understand that a debt-based world is inevitably going to fall apart?
No,
I don't think anyone who's up at that upper echelon understands that.
Yeah, I think that it's been a debt-based world for so long that counts on inflation moving at a certain speed that they don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Clarence Thomas was alive during a world when it was better, at least.
Yeah.
He's seen it degrade. Does he think it's a good thing?
Yeah,
It certainly enriched him.
Yeah, if you're getting rich, who cares, right? Like, the system works for me.
He probably thinks the other team is at fault, and he's done all he can.
And maybe all that will be moot, because when we go to war with China, that's definitely, the big reserve currency change that put us in charge was because of a world war. So it tends to reshuffle at the end based on who wins. And China is clearly preparing.
China building cyberweapons to hijack enemy satellites, says U.S. leak. Yeah, look at how effective just a humble tool like Discord is in control of the battlefield.
I was just going to say the balloons, but
now, this is
the
not
balloons just faded from memory, didn't they? Like, that feels like a lifetime
it's
ago.
crazy. And we learned that there were more balloons from the Teixeira leak. And it's like, we don't want to talk about that. Why would we discuss these amazing leaks?
That's old news.
But remember the Russian satellite that was like the hug of death, where it would come and latch onto them and drag them into a fiery grave? This is actually, they believe, going to be more of signal-based jamming.
Mm.
It really is like in the True to Life Space Force Netflix series with
So the sirens are really just going crazy right now. I don't know if they can hear that.
Probably faintly. I can't remember the John Malkovich. There we go. The bad of his name.
Wait, what did John? Is he in that show?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that any good?
It's pretty funny.
Check that out. And when it comes to, getting down to the bedrock truth, finding out, cutting through all the BS, we all know that the major news corporations ain't going to do it for us, right? But where you might want to go is Minecraft Discord servers.
Obviously.
And more than we ever knew.
U.S. airmen shared sensitive intelligence widely for longer than previously known. Now, this story actually has a really tenuous connection back to our first story, the whole child protection online thing. Here's the roadmap for how they're going to force this through. MD5 sums, or mathematical hashes. The government and other people are going to give Google and Apple and other companies, here's a list of hashes. We want to know where these hashes show up. And some of it is going to be for like the really legit bad stuff, but almost all of it is going to be not that. It's going to be stuff like this. So that if somebody leaks this version of a Word document or somebody leaks this version of whatever, that an alarm will go off and they'll show up, because that's the only way that you know. Unless Discord is scanning documents constantly, they're not looking for keywords, they're looking for hash matches. And so it's like, do you have this document on this thing? Yes. And more importantly, if technology can be backdoored for that in general, like suppose you have a router or something that is scanning all of the traffic passing through it, and you sell it to some foreign adversary, and the little dinger goes off to say, hey, a file just passed through me that matched a hash that was one of the hashes that you want to know, then we know that they know that they've got our stuff.
They know that we know that I know.
Well, they don't
know.
They don't necessarily know that we know that they know, but it's an easy, it's a very low overhead way to figure that out. And that's how they're going to push this through, is that hash matching thing, because it opens up a whole world of possibilities for tracking that we don't have right now.
Now, this guy, he took pictures of everything. So
Yeah.
if they tried to use their MD5s from their actual documents, it wouldn't have worked. But
Right.
after his leak, they could identify that. So the pro leaker tip, you have to take a new picture every time.
Oh,
Well-
that's so annoying.
It's funny that you say that, because like the microdots with a printer, if you've never heard of printer microdots, go Google that. And then sorry about keeping you awake all night, but that will be embedded in camera software as well. So that when you take a picture, there's a few pixels that are out a little bit. And it's like, where did this come from? It's like, yes, this came from a Galaxy S10 from manufactured here that was issued this. And here's the serial number. Because guess what? The printer puts the microdots in the thing. That's how they caught Manning.
So you're going to need a dark room and
Lots of noise.
film equipment. So you're going to have to develop a new picture every time.
Two photocopies.
Scan that with a different scanner every time.
The scanners have it too for currency protection. Just try to, just bring a dollar bill into Photoshop and see what happens and be horrified.
Well, last week we talked about the CAN bus attack against your car. If a thief can get to the CAN network anywhere on your car, they can now attack it and start it and take over and unlock the doors and so forth. It's horrible. Now, what we learned from the Kia boys is that these are not technically sophisticated attackers. They would not be able to figure this out. But luckily, they don't have to, because there's a new product for sale on eBay.
Car thieves are using tech disguised inside old Nokia phones and Bluetooth speakers.
What's the keyword you put into eBay to get one of these?
So there's a video here of this guy's showing off exactly how this works. And yeah, it looks like a Nokia phone. It's not. It's got a little menu in there. And once you are connected up to the car, you just press a button and boom, you're in. You have control.
And you can play Snake. It's really the ultimate
I know.
device.
I think the old operating system is gone at that point.
No, they
So
keep
you
Snake.
might not be able to. If you were stealing a Tesla, maybe you could.
Play Snake on the dash.
And the AI code generation, it's interesting. It's very good at coming up with code that works, but is it good code?
ChatGPT creates mostly insecure code, but won't tell you unless you ask.
So it'll create it and not really warn you. But then if you turn around and you're like, hey, ChatGPT, observe this code and tell me if it's secure, it knows that it's not, and it'll tell you why.
So that sounds like a bug that'll get fixed pretty quick.
Maybe.
Also, they didn't say if they were using ChatGPT 3, 3.5, or 4, because 4 has some stuff like this built into it where it'll take its own response and look at it again for a second and then be like, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Now, if I were this company, I would have tried to set this up, because what a marketing piece, right? We've often talked about when you're looking at a VPN, they'll all promise this, but we've found some that were liars.
Yeah.
But if you look at court cases, some have proven in court that they don't log. This is maybe even better.
Mullvad VPN maker says police tried to raid its offices but couldn't find any user data. So this was in Sweden. They raided their offices in Sweden. It's like, well, they didn't get anything.
Because there wasn't anything. They're like, yeah, we're serious. We do not log. So countdown until Swedish law that says you have to log.
Yeah, I was gonna say this would be great advertising for them, but
What was the email provider that was the same way? Was it LavaBit? And then they were compelled by the court to add stuff to their stuff to log and intercept messages. That's dark. Was it LavaBit? I can't remember who it was.
Coming soon to Sweden. I don't remember either, but I remember that story. And your VPN might not be leaking your information, but your browser is.
Microsoft Edge is leaking the sites you visit to Bing. Of course, this is like follow a creator thing, and the example they use is Hardware Unboxed. And if you follow the creator, it starts sending you URLs you're visiting to Bing for analytics or tracking purposes. Pepperidge Farms remembers that Microsoft was telling you that was why you didn't want to use Google. You should use Bing because we don't do that.
They say it's a
we kind of
mistake.
do.
I don't know if that's really a mistake. Could that be just feeding the AI?
It almost certainly is.
Kind of like how when you just install a fresh Windows copy, it calls 700 advertising services by default, as we've seen on the network.
That would be a good use for it, right? Because it's like, okay, advertising AI. Here's someone who has shown us that they like this.
Mm-hmm. They follow this creator, and this is the niche that they cater to.
And here's all the URLs they like. Mm-hmm. So update that meta profile. So when another person likes that thing, we can put those together.
Yep.
And then sell that information. Yep.
Oh no, a bug. And Google is going for more syncing to the cloud. This is a very sensitive thing to be storing in the cloud.
Without encryption. Google Authenticator can now sync 2FA codes to the cloud. However, they've done it in a very ham-fisted and stupid way, apparently. And you shouldn't use it.
So the idea here is that you might want to two-factor on a different device with the same Google account.
Which is a huge pain, by the way.
No. That makes sense. A lot of people will do this out of convenience, but probably not safe.
If Google hadn't made it so difficult to do the side loading thing, you could literally plug one phone into the other phone, and it's like, are you sure that you want to jack in your two-factor stuff? And it's like, yes. And then on the other phone, it's like, magical things are happening. Are you really sure you want to do this? Yes. And you could re-enter your security token or password or something, or fingerprint or whatever, and then it transfers it. That would be a secure way to do that. But they've painted themselves into a corner with the whole, oh my God, you got to go through the cloud. So you got to send this two-factor stuff to the cloud, which you don't know what's happening to it after it does that. This is bad. This is idiocy.
My all-time favorite ransomware name by far is Clop.
That's good.
I really like it. We have heard this in the past. Microsoft, all the big cloud companies and everything, they make it super simple to sign up for their online stuff. It's like, self-serve. Just, go in, put your stuff in and do it. And time again, we found people abusing that.
Microsoft confirms PaperCut servers used to deliver LockBit and Clop ransomware. No. Dang it.
Sadhorn.mp3.
We forgot that server was on the internet. Our bad.
You shouldn't trust Microsoft, but in this case, you really shouldn't trust Microsoft.
Remember those stories where it's like, this server's had 3 years of uptime and we can't find it. And it's like, it turns out we drywalled over it. Oops.
It's been serving Clop for the last 6 months. Somebody found it.
Fun times.
All right. Oh, Krista, you didn't tell us anything about your hiking adventure.
I wore my foothills trail.
Do you get that as part of your, you have to buy that? Or
I bought it at the end, yeah.
do you have to pay anything to do this?
No.
Okay.
It's 77 miles. Did it 5 days, 6 nights, I think.
Worth it?
Worth it, 100% worth it. It's in South Carolina if you ever want to hike it. You go outside, you touch grass. You don't hear horrible news about how AI is destroying everything.
Did you encounter any AI in the woods?
No, not a single one, surprisingly.
Crazy.
Didn't even have service for a lot of that trip. So 10 out of 10. Would hike again. All right. That's it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.